specifically do you start with the offense? What do you think got better? What allowed some of those things to happen, you think?
Well, we're a really good offense.
Yeah.
So I think more than anything, I just think that they settled a little bit. I think they had better at bats. I think that it's starting to expand out from just Danielle and Hannah. And I don't think we're there entirely yet, but that's fine too. I think that we have, 5 or so swinging it pretty well. And then I hopefully we'll get the rest on board this coming weekend.
And, I know you tried, and we talked about Hoffman coming back. So you're pretty pleased with what you saw from her?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting with Casey, she flat swings it, but we were trying to get her some live at bats before this past weekend, just knowing that this would be her first games and coming back from injury. And really, she hadn't even seen live since November. And so when you really, you kind of forget about that, I guess, when you start getting into like prep mode and like, okay, let's get her ready for this weekend. Let's get her seeing some live pitches. Well, she got injured in our first week back, and that was before we really kind of got back into live. So to see what she was able to do this weekend, and that's not having seen live in about 3 months, that was pretty big for her. And I think she'll only get better from here on out.
I noticed that you gave Saki a little bit of a shot at shortstop. Do you feel like things are beginning to take some shape a little bit as far as the lineup?
Oh, yeah, we're getting there. I don't think she showed what she's capable of doing, especially defensively.
Okay.
And I think that she'll be better from here on out as well. And it's just now, giving some time for Spencer to come back and get, feel better, kind of tweaked her back a little bit. And we're taking it very, very, very slow and getting her back. And so, yeah, I think it's taking shape. I think that we're not even, I don't think we're even close to as strong as we could be. And I think that's fine. We're still finding ways to win for the most part. And so I do think that I'm very excited too, that I think our best days of softball are still way ahead of us.
Yeah. And you said the pitching's, you got to pitch better. Are there some specific areas that you guys are targeting just to, is it specific things that you're trying to be better with?
No, not specifically. I thought Mary pitched really well for us this weekend. I know that if you were to just look at our line and not see her pitch, it might not look quite as good with the numbers that she put up in Illinois, but in the Illinois game, the second Illinois game. And I know I spoke about it briefly. I think you were at women's basketball, which seemed like a huge crowd. So that was really, really cool for Amber. Yeah. But she pitched a lot better than her line would say for that second Illinois game. For someone like Mary, she gets out by fly ball. And when you have as stiff a wind as we had, it changed the game a little bit. And sounds like sour grapes coming out. We were hitting in the same wind, and we didn't take advantage of it nearly like Illinois did. And they deserve to win. I'm not taking that away from them, but Mary pitched really, really well. I thought Jenna pitched really well for us as well. And then it's just kind of getting back to Shanice just lost her break a little bit. And I think if you've had the privilege of seeing Shanice compete, that last weekend was very uncharacteristic of her. So just kind of getting her back on track, and then continuing to work to get Callie and Lauren more comfortable. And so that was the focus this week. And I think that will be in a better spot this coming weekend.
We should see Lenny this weekend again. Is that?
Hope to. Okay. Yes.
All right. I'll let somebody else go. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of stick with pitching, Coach, you've always had Autumn and Mary in that like 1-2 punch with those two. And this year it seems like you have, I don't know if you want to call it depth or options. What is ideal for you as you continue to round all that out? What would that look like instead of that 1-2 punch like you had with Mary and Autumn? Or is that what you want?
Well, I think any coach wants 2, probably 3 that they could call on at any point. I think we're in in a special spot where we have 5 that we can really use. And it's just, especially 5 that complement each other as well as our 5 do. So now's the time, early in the year, we haven't ever had the luxury of really testing a ton. And so right now it's just getting as many out there and seeing what we're going to get from them in game, and then seeing how we're going to utilize them as we move through the season. So, but my ideal would probably be about 5. I think the game's changing. You need more pitchers than we used to have, especially back when I played. But we were really lucky to get through those years with Mary and Autumn. And I don't think that's typical. So I think you're going to need more arms and ones that complement each other to kind of almost take a baseball mentality with it. And we'll be doing that moving forward, especially as they get more comfortable and settle in a little bit more.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Cordy, you got a question?
Well, you coaches love to control everything, and I guess COVID has taught us we can't. So now you get your schedule.
What do you mean by that, Brett?
Well, no, your schedule.
I'd be offended by that question. No.
Oh, you shouldn't be. But you coaches, sometimes you're a little, when you get a late schedule change, and I know you're used to it, right? But this weekend probably changes more than the other 2 weekends, because now it's all Power 5 teams. It's just stiff competition after stiff competition in the middle of this. So how does this change your scouting or, your preparations on a few days' notice?
Well, it doesn't change a ton. We were already prepping for them. It actually takes one off the table. So it's easier prepping than it was 3 days ago. So no, I think that it doesn't matter if you're playing Power 5 or mid-major or whoever is in the other dugout. This game is getting better and better across the board, and it's getting stronger and stronger, and it's getting harder and harder to win games consistently, because everybody's getting so much better. So it doesn't matter who's in the other dugout. We don't take extra focus because it's Nebraska over fill in the blank. But I do think that we feel like we have less to focus on, because we will play SEMO now later in the year, and we will play UCA a little bit later now. So now we're just focusing on 3 opponents instead of the 5, which for softball is a much lighter load in these non-conference weekends. So, but regardless of who's over there, we know that we need to be better than what we've played of late. And we know that we're going to have to bring our best, because that's what we're going to get from everybody that we play.
I know you said that there's more to come with the offense, and numbers change quickly in the first couple of months, but when you see a McEwen or a Sides hitting 250, I'm guessing that's where there's great potential for that to change over the course of the next month or season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, KB is being incredibly productive, but more so with her eyes. She's getting on a lot by walk. Hannah McEwen's hitting the ball on the nose a ton right at defenders, which is one of the most aggravating things in the sport of softball or baseball. And I think that we, got to see Taylor swing it well off and on, but I think if you were to come watch her and know what she can do, she's one of the best hitters that's ever played for us. I think Gibby and Hannah are seeing the ball really well. We're going to see Lenny get back in the lineup. We're going to see some new ones. Casey, I thought, swung it really well. We're going to see some Reagan Kramer this weekend. And so I just think we're going to keep adding tools, and I fully expect Danielle and Hannah to keep swinging it like they are. And I think Hannah's are going to start falling, and KB's going to start swinging it better. So there's definitely more out there that I think, and I hope, will show up this weekend.
Coach, you're talking about KB and your transfers and just how well they've meshed so early in the season. And do you think that's really helped, like Danielle and Hannah, with their offense, because they're not feeling the pressure to pick up the slack? Maybe it's taken more of the transfers to mesh in with the lineup.
Yeah, I think that's a good question for you to ask Hannah when it's her turn. I'd love to hear her answer. But absolutely. I think each year, I think that the individual of the lineup has felt less pressure, because we've continued to add tools and know that it's not just going to fall on them or fall on them and 2 others. It's a lot stronger throughout. And so I think that they have the ability to stay in themselves a little longer and know that they have confidence in the ones around them to do it. That's what that's what I've liked early, is that Gibby's been swinging it well from the beginning. Hannah's been swinging it well, but not necessarily got the results early. And she stayed the course, Hannah Gamble, and stayed the course really well to where now that production's really, really showing up. But they never got outside themselves. And little by little, they're like grabbing one on board with seeing it well. And I'm not sure that would have been the case 2 years ago, really, of just, having the 3 or 4 clustered together that we relied a ton on. So, but again, I'd love to hear Hannah's answer. But yeah, I would imagine that there is such a confidence in their teammates around them that they know that if they don't get it done, someone else will.
And how important is that you're playing so many games so early in the season with all these invitationals that you can really rely on not having to pull out your bench and really get that starting lineup, gelled so quickly?
Yeah, well, I think that's really big. I honestly, Porter, think that that's part of what we're missing as well, not just on the offense. I'm going to shift the focus a little bit just away from the offense a little bit, but I think that's what we're missing so far is we aren't clicking yet. So we aren't clicking yet, but yet we're finding ways to get the job done more often than we're not. And where our offense was better this weekend, our pitching wasn't there consistently. Our defense was somewhere in the middle. And I do think there's moments where one side has that, oh crap, the offense didn't get it done, or the offense having like, our pitching is usually a lot stronger. So I think we have a little bit of that in us in our games. If you're able to watch and know us pretty well, I think you see that a little bit. But I even see us working through that, and I'm excited about that because I do think we're going to be stronger for it coming out the other side.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Coach, we talked over the weekend about the weather, obviously, and obviously this time of year, the weather changes week to week, day to day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, how does that affect Bogle? Does it play differently depending on certain conditions? And how does that affect your game plan as far as the pitching staff?
Well, the only weather that honestly affects when you play in Bogle is the wind and sometimes the sun. We have a nasty sun this time of year, probably about 3 to 4 for the outfielders, but that's something we practice in every day. Probably tougher for opposing teams. I don't know, but the wind is the only thing that really does affect, because we get that wind. And I was actually watching our baseball team and reading, I think I was listening to Brett actually talking about the wind blowing out to left. Was that right, Brett? Maybe you can remind me. I think the wind was blowing out to left, to where it's like, if you get anything up there, it's gonna travel, and it's gonna be tough, even routine pop-ups. And that's what we have over at Bogle as well. So we kind of cuts through a bomb and then keeps on going right through Bogle to make it extra interesting. But that's the only weather that really change. I mean, we don't, the rain, anything like that, it's not a huge deal, but we do get the wind, and when the wind comes through, it usually blows out, which makes it pretty tough and kind of swirls and right. And so hopefully, we may have some colder temps this week. We have some gusts, but hopefully not with what we just went through this past weekend.
Does the wind affect your pitch calling or the game plan at all? Like, is that something that plays a factor into it?
It does. It does. With how we were pitching this past weekend, we felt like we needed to go with Mary or Shanice, and what they typically give up are fly balls, especially with Mary. And when she had already faced them for a game, full game with the offense that Illinois has, is most of her outs are going to come by fly ball. And that's the tough thing in a game like that, is you just hope they don't get enough to where that gets up in the wind and get out. And unfortunately they did. So it does change. But we did feel like we needed to go with one of them with just kind of where we are at. But I do think that we will have more options moving forward.
And then my last question, obviously you got Louisville, Kansas, and Nebraska. Coach Ravel, a legend in the sport. What's your thoughts going against her? Did you face her when you were a player? Like, was there? What do you got? I'm sure you got some Ravel stories there.
Okay, well, she is one of my best friends in the coaching profession. And as good as she is on the field, she is maybe one of the best humans on this planet. And so I have nothing but just wonderful things to say about her. I don't know that we played as, oh yeah, we did. We matched up in a tournament at Sac State when I was playing. And I believe they beat us back in the Peaches James days. But I think they literally hit back to back home runs. Oh, this is showing what a geek I am about softball. To beat us in a tournament in Sacramento. I think that's the only time we played when I was at Cal. We've played a couple times as in my coaching career. And what anytime you take the field against one of Rhonda's teams is that they are incredibly well coached and they play the game the right way. She's just like 100% class in everything that she does, including how she coaches and prepares her team. So we know that we're going to have a battle with them. They're never going to give us anything, and we're going to have to earn everything that we get. But I have nothing but just the best things to say about Rhonda and her entire staff. They are incredible people.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I've got just one. Opening week, you had one big win. You guys are kind of stereotyped as the big boppers, lots of home runs, etc. This past week, you had a lot of runs scored pretty much the entire tournament. How does it change the vibe on the team and the dugout in the locker room when, you guys are kind of back to a lot of offense, hitting a lot of home runs, scoring a lot? Does it change it very drastically?
Well, I think we had a lot more fun this weekend. I think Hannah would speak to that as well. I think when we're swinging well is when we that's what we're used to, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but when, I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg, whether we swing well and we're loose, or we're loose and then we swing well. But I think that you could see a lot more of our personality. I think you can see us being who we are in our games this weekend. And I think that's, a confidence in our offensive selves. I don't know. I hope that's the best I can say for that question. I love that Hannah just gets to sit there and listen, and just judge me with her eyes and a big smile. I can't wait to hear you listen or answer that question, Han.
Do we have any final questions for Coach Deifel? All right, we're going to go.